Hey, today I'm talking about 3 Akira Kurosawa movies, 2 of which inspired Star Wars. And the names of those 3 movies are Yojimbo, The Hidden Fortress, and Rashomon. First up is Yojimbo. This is a 1961 film. The basic premise is this traveling samurai stumbles across this small town that's basically having a mini gang war, and he decides he wants to get paid by one of the 2 sides. He doesn't really care which, and so he spends a lot of the movie just kind of having them bicker over who gets to pay to have this badass samurai on their side. Obviously very aware of this movie and its influence on westerns and Star Wars and all that stuff. So I was a little afraid going into it that like the hype might just be a little too high. But yeah, no, it was great. It definitely lived up to the hype. What I really love about this movie is its aesthetic. It's such a beautiful movie, even though like it takes place in a very dirty and messy place. There's just so much detail everywhere, and you can't not admire all of the gorgeous detail. Like, I love how we see like this wide shot of an entire gang of people, and every single one of them looks unique and different and stands out from each other. But like, it's not like too much. It all fits together and works well. And like, going off of that, like there's a lot of characters in this movie, but they all look different. Like, I never once got confused by people. And I loved the samurai himself. He kind of starts off as more of like a perfect character, but then over time you kind of see all of his flaws and his shortcomings, and it turns into a really powerful film. I also want to say that the sword fighting in this film is incredible because it's actually realistic, because real sword fights aren't like ching 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 ching. Real sword fights are just like 1 or 2 swooshes, someone gets cut and is down. And that's what this movie does repeatedly. Like, pretty much every single time there's a sword fight, it's gonna be over in an instant, and it's gonna be great and badass and amazing. And I loved it. I loved it a lot. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I definitely recommend it. It definitely lives up to the hype, and it's definitely worth it just for the cinematography. This movie has some of the most beautiful shots I have ever seen. Like, I had to pause it and be like, damn girl, that's beautiful. So yeah, no surprise, it's great. Next up is The Hidden Fortress. This is a 1958 film. This one gave a lot of inspiration to George Lucas. This is where he got the idea for R2-D2 and C-3PO, and to also tell the first Star Wars movie from the perspective of the droids. It also shares a lot of plot similarities with The Phantom Menace. But the basic premise is this war just ended, and the princess of the losing side needs to get the hell out of Dodge. But it's difficult with an army all around. So through some sneaky means, they try to sneak her out into a safe area, basically. Now, this movie is really good, but it has a big part of it that's not good. And that would be the 2 characters that were the inspiration for R2-D2 and C-3PO. They're 2 bumbling bandits, and they are just the most annoying characters and drag this film down, kicking and screaming. Like, yeah, sometimes they're funny and enjoyable, but they just get into so many shenanigans. They're so selfish and greedy, and they just don't care about anything else. Their buffoonery is supposed to be funny, and most of the time it's not. It's just annoying. It's like, hey, can we get to the cool story that's gonna happen? So that was frustrating. But like, the rest of the movie is so freaking good, it makes up for them like hand over fist. It's a really beautiful and interesting story, and it's not something you really see that often, and they do such a good job with it, ignoring the bumbling bandits. So yeah, I would say this movie also lived up to the hype. I would definitely recommend it again, but this time I will caveat, be prepared for 2 bumbling bandits that are really annoying. They don't take over the entire movie, but they will frustrate you, I guarantee that. But don't let that dissuade you, because this is a great movie and definitely worth a watch. And lastly is Rashomon. This is a 1950 movie that could be an inspiration to The Last Duel. It has some strong similarities to it, which, by the way, if you haven't seen The Last Duel, it's really good. It's definitely sad, but it's really good. I don't know why it didn't get nominated for a lot of awards, because it should have. Anyway, the basic premise is it's kind of a courtroom drama almost. It's essentially a group of people telling this other guy about how these people all participated in this same event where someone ended up dead, and they're all telling their own versions of what happened. And surprise, surprise, a lot of what they said contradicts one another. Now, this movie was really good, but I didn't put it in the really liked category because of one aspect of this movie that I really, truly hated. So, like I said, someone gets murdered, but before the murder takes place, a woman gets raped. And then in every single version of the story, basically the same thing happens, that because this woman was raped, she is now worth less as a person. Also, it was most definitely her fault for getting raped. And I'm just like, that is so gross and disgusting. And like, yeah, I get it, this is a 70-year-old movie, but like, that doesn't negate the fact that that's very, very gross and awful. But looking past the grossness, this movie's really, really good. I really love like this kind of story where it's people telling contradictory stories, and it was really interesting to see how they contrasted. I love that aspect of this movie. But yeah, so I did enjoy this movie. I would definitely recommend it. It's a good, solid movie. Just, you know, be aware of the awful misogyny. It's definitely not as good as the other two. It's not as pretty and refined, and the storytelling's not as well developed, but it's definitely not a bad film by any means. But yeah, so this is definitely good, definitely worth a watch. Yeah. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got Yojimbo sitting at number 7 in the really liked category. And then not too terribly far behind is The Hidden Fortress sitting at number 10, also in the really liked category. And then bringing up the rear is Rashomon, sitting at number 18 in the quite liked section. And this is out of a total of 42 old movies so far this year.